We'll go ahead and get going here. First of all, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for Coffee Chat with Starboard. Today's event is MMI Work Center and Performance Management, which is part of our Maximo Work Center series. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. Everyone except for our fabulous presenters is going to be in listen-only mode. But if you have any questions about Maximo or for the presentation, please enter it in the chat box. We would love to hear from you, and we will have a little time for Q&A at the end of the event. We also will be sharing a copy of the slides and the recording after the event as well. So thank you. My name is Alex Duggan. I'm a senior project manager with LMI 360, and we're happy to be working with Starboard on all of these fabulous events. Leading our chat today is Amy Tatum, Vice President and Solutions Director for Starboard Consulting. Amy has over 25 years of experience as an engineer and technology consultant and has managed countless implementations and Maximo projects and has been the face of our Maximo coffee chats. Amy, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. 2 years ago, I never would have thought I had such a web presence. It was something I intentionally avoided. So here we are again. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're happy to have you with us today. And we're going on with our next in the series of coffee chats. So as Alex said, we're with Starboard Consulting, and we are a Maximo implementer, IBM business partner. Have been working with Maximo for as a company about 14 years now, and as Alex said, individually as consultants, many of us have 20 plus years and have just a lot of fun experiences and lessons learned and knowledge that we love to share with the Maximo community through these chats and through our sponsorship of several of the Maximo user groups and other community forums that are available to us. So through the monthly coffee chats, we have been focusing on the work centers this first quarter of 2021 and have been alternating the approach, looking at business-focused concepts and then technical-focused concepts. So far we've looked at security, we've looked at the new inventory work center. Today we're going to go back to our technical focus with the MMI Work Center, and then in 2 weeks we'll meet again with the business focus on the Administration Work Center. So we encourage you guys to join us for the March ones, and all of them are available on replays. So if you missed one and you want to go back and check it, you can certainly do that. And we've also, I think, got a survey open right now where we're trying to get some feedback on what you'd like to see in the second quarter and beyond of 2021. So if you didn't get that, please reach out or put something in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and what topics you'd like to see us present going forward. So today, again, we're looking at the MMI Work Center, and I'm happy that we have a new guest with us today. Sam Neel is one of our senior developers on the technical team here at Starboard. Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi there, this is Sam. I'm a Maximo application developer. I've been working in software for about 20 years and with Maximo for probably 13, specifically with Starboard. Most of the work I do is development, though I do some administration and installation work. It's almost primarily development these days. Mainly with Java, but more so with automation scripting these days, and also working with Maximo's external systems, specifically with its REST interface. I think do we have a poll open already, or are we going to start one?
We do. Alex, do you want to run that?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Amy. So before we get started, we'd love a little bit more information about what business organization do you work under? If you look in the chat box, you'll see the poll. So choices are IT, business, other. You're welcome to type in the chat box if there's an other category you want to qualify there. Looks like across the board.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end our poll. If you didn't get a chance to participate, you can still enter in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Alex. So it looks like we ended up with about half others, but then a fair number of IT people. And I think what we've got to show today is definitely of interest to the IT folks, but I think there's also some use cases for maybe some power users or more advanced administrative types that may not be in IT, just because there's a lot of great information in this MMI Work Center. So let's dive in a little bit and first talk about the work centers in general. So this is an area of focus for IBM. They've been enhancing and adding to the work centers since the first ones were rolled out back in version, I think it was 7603, 7604, somewhere around there. They started off being more focused on the work execution and work supervision. Service requests is another one that's really super popular with some of our clients, just the ability to very easily, intuitively create service requests that can then be routed through the maintenance and operations of the organization to be dealt with. Inspection forms is another one we see is very, very popular, a lot of growth in that one. And then moving down, the business analyst and data sets is cool. The maps are great. But today we specifically want to focus in on the Maximo Management Interface. And this one brings forward a lot of great information that used to be, I guess, buried in the depths of the program and the web sphere and server settings and things like that. So it makes a lot of that information a lot more accessible for quick review and analysis, and really adds some good, strong capabilities there. So let's dive into that one a little bit. And Sam, why don't you walk us through what exactly is included in the MMI Work Center and a little bit about how it functions. Where does it pull all this information in to display it here within this user interface?
Sure. So most of this information is usually output into your log files. What MMI basically is it's a grouping of REST interfaces, read-only REST interfaces to be clear, that can give you all of this information on what the state of Maximo is at a given time, like how many open connections there are, how the JVM is performing, what's going on with your integration queues, who's logged into the system. A lot of this information is normally output into your system logs, which can be kind of cumbersome because it's just a lot to read in a list. With MMI, with the Work Center specifically, it will use those REST APIs and bring it into a very crisp interface where it's really easy to find this information. You can compare between nodes or JVMs. It's very handy. It's much better for doing system monitoring than just digging through log files.
Awesome. So I see we've got a list here of the kind of the 14 main categories that are in there, and you've kind of gone through those. So let's take a closer look. The first thing I see here, just looking at the screenshot, is I've got that gathered data there at the top, which I'm assuming is going to pull back just a vast laundry list of information.
Right.
And then after that, can I drill into some of these specific areas and what kind of information would I see, or where does this add value to you as a developer? How is this making your life easier?
So one practical example, when working with Java and automation scripts, Java manages its memory allocation for you, but that doesn't mean that you can't still run afoul of that and leave database connections open, leave long-running threads in place that are just basically misusing resources and can create memory leaks. It is still possible under a managed system like that. So as a developer, if I'm running an automation script, it seems to be taking a while. Every time I run it, it seems to take even longer. Being able to come in here, I can see, do I have database connections open? Is my memory heap usage growing and growing? It's not leveling off like you would expect it to, that sort of thing.
Okay. I remember a situation, gosh, this is years ago. It was probably back in version 4. We had a client that, maybe it was version 5, because I think it was a WebSphere version. But anyway, it's like every 3 or 4 days, their system would get just completely bogged down, and we'd have to stop and restart all the servers, and it would be fine for a few days, and then it would kind of slowly degrade. And it took a while to troubleshoot that, but ultimately it ended up being, and MBO counts around workflows were just slowly escalating. There was something wrong with a workflow package that was holding those up. So is that the kind of information that I could easily get from here and not have to drill through those logs and kind of, I know the MBO counts in the logs now are like little segments, and you've got to sort of piece them all together to see any trends in those numbers.
Right. So with MBO counts specifically, since you use that example, if I were to try and assess what's going on right now, I think by default, Maximo is just going to output an MBO count of every MBO, I think about once a minute. And it creates a very long list that you'd have to drill through to find it. With MMI, you can just go to that specific JVM, look at what the MBO count is for all those objects, but you can view it in a graph. So you can see what is spiked, what's high versus what's low. You can see the MBO set count versus the MBO count itself. It is very handy. You can, it's a pretty wide graph, but you can very easily zoom in on it and go where you want to go.
Okay. So is that something I can turn off in the logging then? So I don't have to have that data printing out and consuming those hundreds of lines every minute in my log?
Right, and that's the idea behind using something like MMI. As a developer, I like to use the logs for troubleshooting a specifically reported problem. But 99% of your Maximo logging data is going to be performance monitoring related. As a developer, what I want to see when I go in there is if I'm making debug statements in a script or something like that, it would be handy to see them there. And also if there's a huge error stack trace when something goes wrong. The problem is when 99% of what's going into the log is performance monitoring data, it can be kind of tricky to find what that is. It would be, you would expect to see messages there, when a major error occurs or something like that, but instead it's all MBO counts and things going on with the integration channels. So MMI kind of lets you separate those two out. So it's, if I want to do performance monitoring, I can just go here. If I want to do debugging, I can go here to the actual log files.
Okay. So what other pieces of performance can I look at? Have I got access to memory and heap sizes and those types of things as well?
Yes, absolutely. You can go in your slide back there. There was a link there that said gather data, but above that was a square that represents that JVM. You click on that, there's a tab right there that will show you your heap allocated memory, your stack non-heap memory as well, what's going on with your threads, what sort of operating system that machine is running.
Okay. Does some of this make it easier then if I do need to open a case with IBM to extract some of that kind of information to send off to them? Because I know they always ask for log files.
Sure. So if you were going to open a ticket with IBM, this is a very good place to go get that information. Normally what they want is just your system status screen that shows what's installed. But by clicking that gather data button, it will give you pretty much every sort of property, everything that's going on with the system right there. It's very large, but if you need the information, it's in there somewhere.
Okay. Now you mentioned earlier this is a read-only view, so I can't make any settings changes from here.
Yes.
But I can view what's going on. I think from my perspective, the technical director, I don't do a lot of programming anymore. I kind of help troubleshoot logs and things like that, but I also deal with users a lot. And I know sometimes I get a user that calls in that's just, Maximo's slow, or, they report something, they don't really know what the problem is. So I think this might be a tool that even some of my power users might find helpful. Because rather than calling IBM or calling their IT desk with a generic Maximo's slow, maybe they could look at the MMI and be like, oh, well, Maximo's slow, but I see there's a memory issue, or one of our JVMs is down, or something like that. Do you see some use cases there for even power users to get a little more informed?
Sure. Just as long as you remember it's just a read-only interface. You can't go, sign people out or restart a JVM or anything like that. But yes, you could easily go in there and look and say 99% of my heap memory is used up. What's going on here? There's obviously an issue on this machine.
Okay. So then I can call IT and give them a little more pointed information than just Maximo's slow.
Precisely. One thing I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about the logging, you brought up the idea of turning off that logging now that it would be in MMI, and I would highly recommend that because I think IBM itself says that you're taking about a 5 to 10% performance hit by doing all that superfluous logging because it takes memory, it takes processor power, it takes disk space to write all of that stuff out. So to just have that in an on-demand interface like MMI is super useful, and it will probably improve the performance of your system in the process.
Yeah, and I know we've had situations where we have to increase the log file size so much because they roll so quickly, on
Right.
the default file size that logs come in. By the time you create your issue and get back to the server to look at the log, it's already rolled over, and you're kind of hunting through to find where the problem might have been. So I think that's a big help as well, to not have those files roll as quickly as they do today.
Absolutely. I've had that exact problem where you have about 60 seconds to get in there and find your error before it rolls over, and then you don't know which rolling log file your error ended up in.
Right. Okay. So Alex, I think we were going to do another quick poll. So do you want to run that one real fast, and let's see how many people are actually aware of and using the MMI today, I think.
Yeah, so in your chat window, you'll see another poll. Now that you know what MMI is, we want to know if you're using that work center or not. Looks like mostly no's. So, whoops, little cat visit there.
Oh, sorry. Very stubborn.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate everyone's feedback.
Great. So some other areas that maybe I want to talk about here, integrations. I've got some integration logging there. What is that going to give me?
That's basically going to give you what's going on with your different queues.
Okay.
Let's see. It's basically queues, OS cache, your global tree, and your event topic tree.
Okay.
But yes, you can view your queues. You can view what's in the queues if anything's jammed up in there. It's very useful for that purpose.
That might help with some of the data loads or integrations where we get a mass of messages and we're like, where did they go? They're not records in the database. They're not in message reprocessing. Where are they?
Exactly.
That will help with that quite a bit. So that's cool. What about the cron tasks? Can I do any monitoring of my escalations and cron tasks from this?
Yes, you can look at the cron tasks. That would, I believe, the information is broken out into like 3 different sections. You've got your system information, like the MBOs, your JVMs, your threads, your integrations, which you just mentioned, like I was saying, queues, event topic tree. And then your third category, that would include the cron tasks, your application services, like your work order service, what classes are being used by your EAR file, and then also just the users that are logged in, like who they are, when they logged in, stuff like that.
Okay. All right. What else? I kind of forgot what else is in there. There's so much, and again, this one is a little bit new. I'm going to flip back over to one of the slides here, and kind of give us a little bit of a cheat sheet to show what these look like. So this is the memory one, right? So I've got some comparisons there, and I can see my MBO counts and threads on either side of that. And then I think this is the one I'm thinking of that's just, it's structured a little bit like Maximo with the tabs and the ability to kind of go tab to tab and drill into additional information, right? So it seems like it's a pretty intuitive interface. I don't need a lot of training or background knowledge to be able to, I need the background knowledge to know what I'm looking at, but as far as just being able to get in and see things, which is nice, because it seems like some of this information is often displayed in WebSphere, or it's buried in the bowels of Maximo and logs, and I don't always know where to go get some of this.
Right. No, it's great having it centralized here, especially something like if you see in that section that says database management information, that's where you can often see if you have a major resource leak, like specifically where it says like long running connections. You've got a high number of that. You've got something seriously wrong there.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I can't really get this anywhere else, right? Maximo Classic. How many applications would I have to go to get this out of Maximo Classic?
Oh, I couldn't give you an exact number, but
I'm thinking it's a lot.
A lot of this stuff you would normally be looking in WebSphere for. So assuming you have access to that, that's going to already be a barrier. Some of this I would really only expect to come out in the log files. You could get some of it from the status screen, on the top bar where you're, just looking at like what's installed on Maximo, what database version.
Sure.
that would be located there. But as far as free connections, long running connections, I don't think there's anything in Maximo right now that tells you that.
Okay.
That's usually just something that's output into the log.
I'm gonna go over here to our chat window and see if we've got any questions. So here's one. Can you leave the MMI running to monitor Maximo, or is it just for when you need to do some troubleshooting?
Well, like I said, it's a REST interface. So the Work Center is just calling upon the interface. So it's always there if you need it. It's not something that you have to like activate in order to get that information. It's just, it's the Work Center is just pulling the REST interface.
Okay. So doing any trending, it's like if I wanted to see any sort of historical trend analysis, it's really just kind of a real-time view when I open the...
Right. I've not seen anything that looks like it's trended right now, but I would expect them to do that eventually. But again, it's just like with your log files, like how much information do you want to record?
Right. Do you remember what version this came out in? Is it just new to 7.6.1.2, or was it available previously?
I don't think I've seen it until 7.6.1.2. That doesn't
I'm thinking
mean,
as well. Yeah,
it doesn't mean
it's
that
pretty
IBM
recent.
Yeah, that doesn't mean IBM didn't put it in there and just not tell anybody, but
I do vaguely recall, and this is another war story, probably back around version 7.1 maybe. There was something similar to this that I think ran directly out of WebSphere maybe, and we had a client actually turn it on, unbeknownst to us as the implementer, and then shortly thereafter they started having major performance issues, and it took us quite a while to troubleshoot and find that there was some version of this way back that was kind of a trial thing, and I don't even know how the person found it to even enable it, but they did, and it was disastrous. So, and the use that we've had with the clients that we've got it running now, have you seen any performance issues? Are there any hits that just opening up the MMI causes to the system, or is it pretty...
Not that I've seen. That doesn't mean it's not using any resources to do that. I mean, it has to come upon the information somehow, but I haven't noticed a performance hit just from launching MMI. I feel like I would have heard that by now.
Okay. Now we covered Work Center security a couple of weeks ago with Daniel off of our team. So just like all of the other Work Centers, there would be a security setup for this. So for whatever user groups you would want to give access to, you can go into security groups application, filter your security apps by tools and tasks, I think it's under, and you'll see the Maximo Management Interface there. You can grant access, and there is a template you can apply to make sure that folks have the right capabilities. So if you don't see it, if you're on 7.6.1.2, you don't see it in your menu right now, do go into security groups and check that, because you will need to enable it. It's not enabled by default. So Pam did just confirm, thanks Pam, that it's been available since 7.6.1.0. So okay. It has been out for a little bit. All right, another question here in the chat. Is IBM planning to make the app more interactive than just a display, such as the ability to terminate long-running queries? I don't know the answer to that. I haven't seen that on the roadmaps. Doesn't mean that it's not out there somewhere, but it would definitely be a great option, and probably something that could be put in as a request for enhancement. So Barry, if you've got access to the RFE site, you might want to put that in there, and we would all happily vote for that opportunity. And then follow up to that, what are your thoughts, and this is probably good for you to answer, Sam, as being a heavy developer, what are your thoughts about the product in general? Useful or a good start but need more info? Barry's development team wasn't too excited about it, and I know you weren't very excited about it first. When I recruited you to do this chat with me, you kind of, I don't know, but I think once you dug in a little bit, you found some good nuggets. So what's your take on
that? Yeah, and I might be rehashing something I said earlier, but I like using log files for debugging or being notified about something very serious going wrong. But for debugging specifically, just most of that information, in fact, the overwhelming majority of what's in the log files is not useful to me, because most of the time I'm not chasing a memory leak. I'm not trying to diagnose a performance problem. I'm just trying to find figure out why this thing I made doesn't work. And those log files, they make that difficult. But performance monitoring is still important, but it's just very nice being able to have that separation and just use your log files for actually diagnosing problems, not just monitoring something that people are going to be looking at not even every week. You know what I mean?
So I guess that brings up maybe a good general practice we might recommend of going in and turning off the system logging that's native to Maximo on a lot of these types of things and letting the MMI handle that, which would then scale your log files back. But the other opportunity that I think that brings up is you're kind of looking at a different user community there. I know with a lot of our clients, you've got one group in IT that's managing hardware and networks and servers, and they're the people that we call when we need more disk space or we need more memory. You've got a different group then that's doing that heavy hitting Maximo troubleshooting that you're talking about. So really this MMI interface gives your IT infrastructure team perhaps some visibility into the performance of the Maximo servers and the DBA information into the database side of the performance without them really having to know the ins and outs of WebSphere or the Maximo logging or things like that. So it seems like that's another good opportunity of this product, is it really brings some of that data that's been hidden for some time to the forefront for non-Maximo IT support personnel to maybe be able to access it and get a window to that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of what you showed on that system information screen would make total sense to somebody that's a database admin. They may not know what an MBO is, but if you just told them it's a record set, that would probably be enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like we've covered most of the questions in the chat. So with that, I think we're about done. Be sure to mark your calendars for March 16th. We'll be back talking about the administration work centers, and that will include Pam Denny off of our team and Tom Saracen from IBM. So we're excited about that. And again, the replays are available for all of our coffee chats. We appreciate your time and attendance. And if you've got any further questions that we can help answer for you, please don't hesitate to reach out with those. Alex, back over to you.
Great. Amy and Sam, thank you so much. A lot of information. I know I learned a lot of great useful tips for performance management, so really appreciate your time. And for all of you joining us, thank you. We appreciate you. As Amy mentioned, this is part of a 4-part work center series. So we hope to see you all on the 16th. Thanks and have a great day.
All
right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.